What happens to the human body when it is hit by the shock waves, extreme heat, and radiation of a nuclear bomb? When a nuclear bomb explodes, the temperature at the epicenter exceeds 10 million degrees Celsius, similar to the temperature of the sun's core. Everything within a 1 to 2 kilometer radius is completely vaporized in milliseconds. Let's explore what happens to a person who is close to the epicenter of a nuclear explosion and learn about the fatal stories surrounding the demon core, the plutonium sphere that was meant to be used in the third nuclear bomb. Is it true that only Russia has the power to destroy the entire world? But first, don't forget to subscribe to the Brugger Films channel, activate the notifications and leave a like. A person near the epicenter would first be hit by the heat wave, causing their body hair to be instantly burned off. The eyes would explode due to the shockwave compression, and the extreme heat would vaporize the clothes. The skin would burn until it is vaporized, exposing the muscles, which would also burn down to the bones. The internal organs would explode, and by the end, not even the bones or teeth would survive the extreme heat. The heat generated by the radiation is so devastating that it erases any trace of human existence. It's as if there was never anyone there. Nothing survives, nothing remains. And all of this happens so fast that anyone at the epicenter wouldn't even have time to realize it. To understand the scale of this heat, in a crematorium furnace with temperatures between 800 and 1000 degrees Celsius, a human body takes about 2 hours to be reduced to ashes. In Hiroshima, for example, this process happened instantly. Those who are farther from the epicenter won't escape unharmed. They are hit by a devastating radiation wave, which causes severe, incurable burns, cancerous diseases, and a short life filled with extreme suffering. The United States produced 3 nuclear bombs in the 1940s. The first, Little Boy, destroyed Hiroshima. The second, Fat Man, devastated Nagasaki. And the third, called Rufus, was never launched and became known as the Demon Core because of the deaths it caused, even though it was never used. On August 21, 1945, the Demon Core, which was the disassembled plutonium sphere from the third bomb, was being handled by physicist Harry Daghlian. During an experiment aimed at stacking tungsten blocks around the core to create a neutron reflector, a tragic fatal accident occurred. This experiment aimed to bounce the neutrons emitted by the plutonium core back into the fissile material. When this happens, the reflected neutrons interact with other plutonium nuclei, causing them to split, nuclear fission. This process releases more neutrons, which in turn continue to cause fissions, starting a chain reaction. This cycle can lead to a critical state, where the chain reaction sustains itself continuously. The experiment, when brought to a critical state, triggers nuclear fission, a process in which the plutonium nucleus is bombarded by neutrons, causing it to split into 2 smaller nuclei. This splitting releases a massive amount of energy. Under controlled conditions, like in nuclear power plants, this process can be managed safely and efficiently to generate energy. However, when uncontrolled, the same process can lead to an uncontrollable chain reaction with devastating consequences. This can lead to overheating and, under extreme conditions, a nuclear explosion, releasing devastating radioactive energy. Daghlian knew that he should not close the core completely with the blocks because it could trigger a critical reaction. During the experiment, the Geiger counter in the room indicated rising radiation levels as he added more blocks, signaling that the system was approaching a critical state. He then began removing the blocks to reduce reactivity. The experiment, when brought to a critical state, triggers nuclear fission, a process in which the plutonium nucleus is bombarded by neutrons, causing it to split into 2 smaller nuclei. This splitting releases a massive amount of energy. Under controlled conditions, like in nuclear power plants, this process can be managed safely and efficiently to generate energy. However, when uncontrolled, the same process can lead to an uncontrollable chain reaction with devastating consequences. The physicist was exposed to a fatal dose of 510 rem of radiation. This means he received 823 times the acceptable annual exposure limit in just a few seconds. He died about 25 days later from acute radiation syndrome, which causes multi-organ failure, hemorrhages, destruction of red blood cells, vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration. In other words, a widespread destruction of the body's cells. Less than a year later, on May 21, 1946, physicist Louis Slotin also suffered the fatal consequences of the demon core. He was performing what they called tickling the dragon's tail, a risky experiment involving a hollow sphere used as a neutron reflector, exactly like Doclean. Louis Slotin used only a screwdriver to keep the halves of the reflector apart, allowing neutrons to escape and thus controlling the core's critical state. He knew the great risk he was taking if the core were completely covered. However, the tool slipped, and the hemispheres closed quickly for a brief moment, just long enough for the core to enter a critical state, releasing an intense burst of radioactive blue light. Slotin quickly dismantled the device, but he received a fatal dose of radiation and died 9 days later. In the room with Slotin were 7 other physicists, all of whom later died of leukemia. The demon core was never used in a bomb, but it claimed lives in unexpected and tragic ways. It became a symbol of the harsh lessons learned during the early days of nuclear science. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute estimates that there are 9,585 active nuclear warheads in the world. Russia and the United States are the countries with the largest number of nuclear weapons. Russia inherited nuclear weapons from the Soviet Union, and the Federation of American Scientists estimates that the country has around 5,580 nuclear warheads. 100 nuclear warheads would be enough to cause a devastating nuclear winter, annihilating human survival. Since Russia possesses thousands of warheads, the impact would far exceed what is necessary to end modern civilization. To this day, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the demon core remind us of the horrors of nuclear power when misused. Despite being a valuable, clean, and cheap energy source, the use of this force is subject to criticism due to its deadly reputation. But what do you think? Is nuclear energy safe for today's world? Do you support the production of nuclear energy? The Brugger Films channel wants to know your opinion. If you like this content, subscribe to the Brugger Films channel, leave a like, and share this video so more people can learn the lessons of history. Follow us on social media and send us ideas for productions you'd like to see here on the channel. A big hug and see you next time. Goodbye.